Our movie starts with Neil arriving at the hospital disguised as a nurse so he can steal an ambulance and get out easily. This is Chris, Neil's partner in the gang. He goes to buy a bunch of explosives, pretending he's a construction worker. And this is Al Pacino. You all definitely know him, or as we'll call him in the movie, Lieutenant Vincent. Vincent lives with his wife and her daughter from a previous marriage. He wakes up in the morning to have sex and then moves on to his work as a cop in the robbery and crime division. Then we have Michael and Waingro, Neil and Chris's partners in the gang, along with a fifth person named Trejo. Each of them moves to their assigned position. Neil and Chris head to Venice Street in the stolen ambulance. Michael has stolen a tow truck along with Waingro, and they park it under the highway. Trejo is tracking an armored car, which is essentially their target. When the moment to strike comes, they all put on their masks and move in. Neil cuts off the armored bank truck's path so that Michael can drive the massive tow truck and ram into it. After the armored car flips over, everyone jumps out to rob it. They smash the reinforced door and steal bank bonds worth a huge amount of money. Then they put up a roadblock to slow down the police from reaching the scene. Neil warns the gang and tells them not to hurt anyone. But before they can escape, Waingro kills one of the guards for no reason. The remaining guards try to open fire, and Michael is forced to kill one of them. Even the last guard ends up being killed, so they don't leave anyone behind. The gang grabs the ambulance and heads to their rendezvous point. There they blow up the ambulance and switch to another vehicle to make their getaway. Later that night, Neil goes to hand over the bank bonds to a man named Newt, and he collects his cut from the heist. After that, he tells Newt about the next job, one that will earn them millions. At the same time, Vincent arrives at the crime scene and realizes that the people responsible are definitely a professional gang who planned every detail of the operation. The only witness he finds is a homeless man who says he heard one of the gang members calling another by a ridiculous nickname, the Fool. Because of this, Vincent orders the entire police force to search all the jails to find any information about a notorious criminal known as the Fool. Back to Neil, he goes to meet the rest of the gang at a restaurant. Without any preamble, he grabs Waingro, the one who killed the guard, and forces him to finish his meal faster. He tells the others that Waingro will no longer work with them. Then Neil takes the gang to divide the money. As soon as they step outside, he grabs Waingro again and is about to kill him, but a police patrol interrupts him. When Neil returns later to finish it, Waingro has disappeared. Each gang member returns to their home, and we see snippets of their personal lives, which we don't really focus on. Even Vincent goes home and ends up arguing with his wife because work consumes all his time, and they're forced to have sex in the morning. The next day, Neil grabs a book about minerals and goes to a cafe to read it. There he meets a girl named Eddie. She tries to talk to him, but he's a gangster who doesn't know how to hold a conversation, so he responds coldly. Later he realizes what he did, goes back to apologize, gets to know her, and not only that, he's attracted to her. The following day, Neil goes to meet a man named Claudius to get details about the bank robbery. At the same time, Newt calls a man named Vincent, one of the owners of the stolen bonds. He asks Vincent to sell the bonds for 40% of their value. Vincent agrees, and they arrange a place and time. And of course, Neil is the one who will go. Neil returns home and finds Chris sleeping in the living room. He realizes Chris must have fought with his wife, but Neil tells him there's no time for feelings and emotions. They need to focus on the titanium job before the bank heist. Meanwhile, we leave the gang and go to a man named Don. He was in prison and is now out, trying to live an honest life. But his employer treats him badly, roughly because he's black. Remember him, we'll need him later. Neil calls Vincent to agree on the time and place, but at that moment he sees Chris's wife with another man. He confronts her about cheating on her husband, and her husband ends up sleeping at Neil's place, which Neil doesn't like at all. That night, Vincent goes to meet Charlie, the brother of a notorious criminal. When he asks him about the Fool, he learns that his real name is Michael Shrito. And just like that, the first member of the gang has been identified. Vincent starts a thorough investigation on him and orders the police to track him and map his movements. The next day, Neil goes to meet Vincent's men to collect the money, but they've set a trap and try to get rid of him. Chris, however, is there and warns him. Neil grabs the money and escapes in the car. After that, he goes back and kills the man who tried to kill him. Another man tries to flee, but Michael appears and kills him. Neil realizes he's been tricked. The money is just blank paper. He calls Vincent and tells him he messed with the wrong person, warning him that his days are numbered. That same night, we see the gang gathered for a family-style dinner. Each member is with his wife or girlfriend, except for Neil, who finds himself alone. He steps outside and calls Eddie. Meanwhile, the police are monitoring them because of Michael, and they start identifying all the gang members, since they all have criminal records except Neil. Vincent orders his men to find out everything about Neil, and also tells them that they're planning a surprise for the gang in their next operation. Now we move on to the titanium job. Vincent and his men are at the location. Neil and the gang arrive at a warehouse belonging to the US military and break in. At the same time, the police are monitoring the scene closely, but one of them makes a sudden noise. The gang notices their presence. Neil, in particular, sees Vincent in the shadows in a historic cinematic moment. Imagine Robert De Niro staring into Al Pacino's eyes. Anyway, Neil tells Chris that the mission is over and takes him out. They leave without taking anything. Even though Vincent saw them, he refuses to arrest them because that would only charge them with attempted robbery, which would result in only a few months in jail. The next day, Neil meets with Chris and Michael and tells them that the police have surely figured out everything about them and that they need to pause all their operations for now. The only job they'll do is the bank heist, and everyone agrees to join in. Meanwhile, Vincent tracks down Chris's wife's lover, named Marcino. He threatens him, saying he'll arrest him for smuggling cigarettes if he doesn't give up Chris's wife. On the other side, Neil explains to the gang the escape routes they'll use after the heist. However, the police are present, monitoring them. After they leave the location, Vincent arrives and learns the details of the meeting through his surveillance team. But Vincent is puzzled. What are they planning to steal here? The place is just an oil refinery and a waste yard. While thinking it over, Vincent realizes what the gang has been doing. He understands that Neil is a clever man and tricked them to see whether they were being watched and identified. Sure enough, Neil is at the location, recording them. Neil goes to Newt to get information about Vincent. He learns that Vincent is a smart cop who has taken down some of the most notorious gangs. Newt advises him to drop the bank robbery because Vincent is not someone to underestimate. On his way back home, Vincent pulls Neil over on the road and asks him to join him for a cup of coffee. At the cafe, Vincent starts talking about Neil, about his past prison time, and warns him that he'll end up back there again. But Neil tells him to forget it. Going back to prison is not in his schedule. Vincent tells him that if Neil is the reason a woman becomes a widow or a child becomes an orphan, he will kill him. But Neil replies that things don't work that way, and that if he ever feels threatened by Vincent, he'll kill him too. Vincent returns to the precinct and learns that Neil's entire crew has disappeared from surveillance. No one knows where they are. At the same time, the gang is already beneath the bank, working to disable the security systems in preparation for their plan. Remember Waingro? Waingro goes to meet Vincent and offers him a deal to eliminate Neil because Neil has threatened to kill both of them. The next day, Neil gathers his gang at the restaurant where Don works. While they're planning, they get a call from Trejo, who tells them he won't be able to join the bank heist. Neil immediately decides to hire Don, an old criminal offering him money to buy the restaurant where he works. Don agrees instantly and beats up the restaurant owner. The following day, they go to the bank and enter like regular customers. Then they start attacking the bank guards and threaten everyone to stay silent. The gang begins stealing the money, escorting one person after another out of the bank. Meanwhile, the police receive a robbery alert, and Vincent rushes to the bank. He arrives just before Chris gets into the getaway car. A gunfight breaks out between the gang and the police. In the end, Chris gets into the car, and they escape under heavy police fire. On the way, Don takes a bullet and dies, causing the car to stop. The police have the area surrounded, and bullets are flying from all directions. The gang has no choice but to confront them. Vincent steps out himself, firing at the gang. It's a matter of life or death for him. Neil moves in one direction, trying to help his gang, while Vincent moves in the other, trying to protect the civilians. In the end, Neil grabs Chris, who has been injured, and they escape in a car. Meanwhile, Michael enters a park and takes a little girl hostage. Vincent follows him and shoots him in the head, killing him instantly. Neil reaches a doctor and threatens him to treat Chris. Afterward, he leaves and promises that Newt will arrive to take him to a safe place. Neil decides to go to Trejo's house since he's the only one who knows the details of the operation. He needs to make sure Trejo hasn't told the police. When he arrives, he finds Trejo's wife murdered. Trejo himself is gravely injured and asks Neil to put him out of his misery. Neil doesn't hesitate. Neil then calls Newt to check on Chris. He also asks for the addresses of Vincent and Waingro, changing the escape plan because he no longer trusts it. Vincent goes to the person who tipped off the police about the bank heist. He beats him to find out who informed them and discovers it was Waingro. Meanwhile, Neil reaches Vincent's house and kills him without asking any questions. The police arrive at Chris's wife's house and demand that she hand over Chris. Vincent realizes that Neil is taking revenge on everyone who betrayed him, and he's certain that Neil's next target is Waingro, who is at the airport hotel. Before going to kill Waingro, Neil visits Eddie, but she has learned the truth about him from the news and tries to run away. He catches her and promises that he will change, but she must escape with him because he truly loves her. The next day, Neil goes to Newt, who has prepared all the fake passports and the plane they will use to escape. When Neil asks about Chris, he learns that Chris has left and will escape on his own responsibility. Chris is heading to his wife, who has decided to turn him into the police. When he arrives and sees her on the balcony, she warns him that the police are waiting. He decides to change his plan and turns back. When the police stop him, they find him with a new haircut and a forged identity, and they let him go. Vincent's only hope is that Neil will go after Waingro. At that moment, Neil is heading to the airport with Eddie. By the time Newt informs him of Waingro's location, it's too late. The plane is already taking off, and he must catch it. But narcissistic Neil decides to change course and heads to the airport hotel to settle all his scores. Neil arrives at the hotel. Despite the police presence, he disables the elevator and sets off the fire alarm to create chaos. At that moment, Vincent is at the hospital with his wife because their daughter is sick, but he leaves her and rushes to the hotel. Neil reaches Waingro and kills him, then strikes one of the officers and walks away. Before he can get to the car to escape with Eddie, he sees Vincent approaching her, so he decides to leave her behind and walks away. Neil arrives at the airport, but Vincent chases him and they exchange gunfire. In the end, Vincent shoots him. But we notice that Vincent is sad over Neil's death. He says goodbye to him before he dies. And that was the end of our movie.